Alright, hey guys, it is the 5th gen Hyundai Elantra guy here, and today I got a new video for you, and I hope you guys enjoyed the previous one of the install of the lightweight crank pulley. I'm going to have an update video of that pretty soon. Sorry if I'm kind of like in the sun here, I just need some lighting. Today we're going to be doing something pretty cool, which I've been researching, and it's going to be beneficial for future projects for the car. As you guys know, in the 100 subscriber special, we talked about, the AMR 500 is no longer. We already know that kind of tuning this computer, that's not many forums or anyone talks about tuning the ECU on these cars, even if it's possible or not. These Continental ECUs, the SD or the 240 X series. And so we're going to be installing something that's going to help us get some power now and get more control over our fuel. And it's going to be really useful later down the line when we size up our injectors in order to help with our turbocharger. And it's a very cool unit, and it's the Apexi AFC Neo Universal Fuel Controller. So we're going to get right into it, guys, so don't go away. Alrighty, hey guys, so this again is the Apexi AFC Neo. So Apexi is a very cool company, and they are of course originally from Japan, so this is like my third JDM item. And of course they have a US distribution, so they have Apexi USA, so they make tons of cool aftermarket products for, of course, the JDM market. But this being a universal fuel controller, we're going to try to install it. It's very versatile because it can work with a number of different types of basically they call it an AFC for airflow controller, and by controlling what the ECU sees, meaning the air or pressure, whatever sensor you're equipped with, whether it's hot wire, flap, pressure, or the RB26, which is for what I think the Nissan Skyline, and the RB26 depth sensor, which is basically an in and an out, like there's two sensors or whatever. But our car, of course, has a MAP or a manifold absolute pressure sensor. You guys can see, of course, in the description, I did an install video how to change that. So you can go ahead and check below the description. And if you need to know how to swap out your MAP sensor, I'm going to show you how in that video. But anyway, this intercepts that signal. And by intercepting that signal, it's going to change what the ECU gets. And by doing that, you can essentially adjust your fuel. And by adjusting your fuel, you can basically work along a map. It's 8 for easy mode, and pro mode is 16 point along an RPM range. And you also have the throttle point, so you can do low throttle, high throttle, and choose the percentage of throttle that is, in which case you can change that map. So it's a very versatile unit. Map sensor and everything else, and the 2 ignition power, illumination, we're going to tap into the illumination from my stereo because they want an illumination line. 2 grounds to the ECU easy. We're going to tap all of those. We're not going to splice, even though they want you to splice. We're going to make this not as invasive as possible, non-invasive as possible. But yeah, guys, I'm going to link in the description the product where I got on eBay. I got mine from Blackhawk Japan, a cool company in Japan that sells on eBay and also has their own website. And of course, I'm going to link the PDF manuals they have on their own website for doing this install because it's very specific. Of course, I'm just going to kind of show you guys here. You guys can see this little wire is my mic, by the way. Didn't want to use my wireless. You guys can see, hopefully, the wiring diagram on here, which is, we're going to be using this top one here. Basically, you intercept the map out from the sensor, go into the AFC, and then do an out from the AFC back into the ECU, or the ECU line. And I basically came up with a pretty elegant solution for this to make it non-invasive. Basically what we're going to do is we are going to have a little wire in between that's going to basically tether the original lines from the sensor to the actual plug and have lines come in between. That way we're not cutting off our OEM harness, because, you know, changing a harness is pretty bad. Or, well, if you did, you splice it, whatever. We just want to retain the integrity of the OEM harness, basically. At least that's what I want to do. And have wires come out like that. And those wires are going to go to the AFC, basically the out from the sensor, and then go into the sensor, or the AFC Neo. Then the out is going to go back, basically intercept like that. And it's basically completely non-invasive. And all the other wires, we're just going to use wire taps. So let's go ahead and go over the stuff you guys need, and we'll go ahead and get started, guys. As you guys saw in my wideband UEGO AEM install, we did an elegant solution by tapping through the paneling on the fender well, running the wire through that and that hole, and then going through the little rubber grommet, and that leads right into the spacing on the door, and that leads right into the cabin so that we could wire. And that's how we're going to bring our wires inside of the AFC Neo. In case any of those holes need to be expanded, we brought this, so you guys are going to want this. And if you're putting on another car, it's always good to have one in case you need to tap those holes yourself. And whatever it is to do, have your wire management. Different types of heat shrink would be good. Small cable ties, gloves. This is my favorite tape, by the way. Aluminized Nishua tape. Might need it. I always bring it. Electrical tape for sure. Razor. These are the paneling tools I'm going to be using to open up basically where I did my stereo install and be able to pull out the stereo so that I can get to my orange and white illumination wire from the stereo to tap. And of course, flathead, a multi-purpose screwdriver, whatever. Scissors for cutting heat shrink tubing. Crimpers for doing your what do you call it? These little splices on here, which is what we're actually going to be using. I'll show you that in more detail. These are going to be what we actually use to put into our map sensor, and I'm going to basically explain what I mean by that, because it's pretty specific, but basically just goes right into it. And we use the little female connectors here, and then it goes right into the map sensor, and then that's going to, little ant there, the little males here are going to basically you're going to see what size fits, go right into the plug basically. Wire cutter and stripper, that's what this is too, but this has the crimping, so that's why we have that. Pliers. As always, guys, eye protection. I only have one set of 16 gauge red wire, but I just covered in black tubing for negative or whatever. We're probably going to be using fuse taps for the 212 volt ignition sources we need, and we're going to tap the fuse. This is a really great product. I'll link this in the description. I just got it for this specific install. This is the Tesa automotive harness wiring wrap. It's basically a woven type of material, almost like a maybe cotton or polyester, something resistant to heat, like nylon maybe. Actually, nylon's not that heat resistant, I think, but it's very has good adhesion. It's basically going to be what we wrap our harnesses with and wiring, so that looks really nice and clean. Want some T-taps, of course, because that's the method I'm going to be using. You can see how these ones work here in that diagram. That's what we have the pliers for, so that we can crimp them down good. Lighter for your heat shrink. Heavy duty, what do you call it, snips. Lighting, multimeter for doing your testing. And of course, I'm going to explain to you right now the method we are using with the map sensor, so you can kind of get a better idea of what I'm saying. So this one has already been spliced fully, so it's pretty much done. So as you can see, we used one of those little female connectors there, which go right in to the map sensor, because the map sensor has the prongs, the male prongs. We basically crimp that onto a wire, heat shrink this so that we don't get any kind of contact between them when they're sitting in there, and that way we don't get any interference between the signals, because you don't want that. And then these are the little bungs. It's a little test bung, because our connector, the ones that come with the Apexi AFC Neo, and they're like these little kind of really weird, interesting ones that sort of, they want you to kind of crimp down in the wire like this on two sides, and it's kind of tricky to do with these, but you'll see me do it up close. And they come with these little rubber things, which I think is supposed to be insulation, but it doesn't really work too good, so I'm just going to heat shrink. That's what the black is on the exposed wire. And this basically is the male plug. So this is going to go from the map out into the AFC Neo. So you guys can see how this solution basically works, and then you're going to have one going from the AFC Neo back into the wiring harness, basically, like that, and then the rest are just going to stay flat across. So that's basically how this is done. I'm going to do one of these for you so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And the rest of the stuff in there doesn't matter. That's just for the, you can see I made a few more of them. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much everything you're going to need for the install. Of course, especially this wiring reference you guys are going to want. I'm going to link all the diagrams that I use to basically reference stuff from HEManual. Again, that's like the best website. Here's our map sensor. Again, we got 4 pins. You're going to want the one, they always do manual. This is the manual transmission. This is the automatic transmission, which is what we have. From the map sensor, 1 is basically, as it says right here, that's our map signal. The rest you don't want. This is also an internal intake air temperature sensor, so that's what number 4 is right there. So make sure you guys make sure you keep track of all that stuff. For example, our throttle that we're going to be tapping. You have 2 throttle signals actually on the transmission here. You're going to have a throttle sensor 1 and 2. The rest are motor control, ground, and power. And as you can see, we're going to want throttle TPS 1, which is the linearity from low to high, and that's what the sensor is going to want from the throttle position sensor. And then they have one that's going to be, I think as they explain here, it's like a redundancy, so it's like a fail-safe. It's from high to low, which you don't want. So we want to tap TPS 1, which if we look on here, okay, TPS 1 is going to be number 6. Number 6 is the furthest to the right. Or actually, I think, well, when we unclip it, we'll know, because they show you in reference to the clip side, and there's only one, so when you're pulling it out, you know which one, either end, is the one you want. And just, of course, the other documentation. This one here is the general input-output signal for the ECM connector for the automatic transmission. So we've got all our, things here, and then we know that these are going to be our 2 power grounds on the ECU that we want, 1 and 2, which are right here on the CNG AB, and they have CNG AA. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it, and we're going to go ahead and get in with the install. I'm going to show you guys how to make one of these little wire connectors here, so you can make that, or you can do it how you want. I'm just going to show you how I did it. I'm going to pull out the map sensor, start plugging them into the map sensor, and show you that. Start wrapping it up with the black tape so it looks nice. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started, guys. Alrighty, guys, so here is our map sensor. It's basically right down there. It won't have a little green logo on it because we swapped out for an NTK map sensor when I did my video. Again, I explained. But essentially, to do this, you guys are going to want to pull on this little sensor here, which connects to your variable motor actuator for the manifold, and this is the little control. So you'll want to go ahead and unplug that. By doing that, you'll have access to get a socket in here. It's a 10mm. You can then pull this off here and do that, and then we're going to go ahead and remove that. But before we do any more with our wiring, guys, step 1 is we're going to disconnect our negative on our battery harness. That way we can get a full setup before we even attempt to basically start the car. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure our car is unlocked. Got our little negative terminal off of here. Of course, we got our special Ryzen, which always sparks when you take it off or on. So kind of be careful about that. Forgot to mention, you guys want your socket set too, the Cobalt one. Always good to have a socket set. So we're going to go ahead and remove that there. You can go ahead and take this off here. We're going to also be removing our ECU connectors as well, but we're going to wait for the battery to sort of let it kind of drain out whatever we have in the capacitance, and then we're going to continue. Alright, guys, so next we're going to unbolt the map sensor, and then we're going to zoom in on that, those prongs, so I can kind of explain it to you further. Just like that. This kind of pops right out, and then you guys can see right here the prongs I was referring to, if it will focus here, which is, you can see each of those prongs are going to be where the female connectors go into, all 4. And if we know our connector here is on the top, meaning where the clip is that you press for your thumb, if we go ahead and reference our diagram here again, we can kind of lay it out like this. Okay, so if we line this up right here, you can see there's our thumb connector there, and there's the top there. Of course, don't get it all mixed up, because when you actually, it'd be more accurate to do it like this, I guess, but so you understand. Well, you guys probably get what I'm saying, but we can use this for reference here again. We want the map signal. That's what we're intercepting. It's number 1. Now you might think, okay, when that plugs in, it's just going to plug in, right? So we're going to go like that. But think about this. So if you imagine me grabbing that sensor part, right, where the thumb piece is, where you would basically unclip it, 1 is actually going to be here. It's not there because if you were to do that, just basically, grab this, imagine that's the plug and go like that, the little connector clip would be on the bottom. So you kind of have to go like this and, work it around. For those of you that might get mixed up with that, I would mark this right here that but it's just probably maybe easy to remember. Not the side of the bolt, opposite side of the bolt is sensor 1. So this is the one we're going to intercept right there. The rest are just going to pass straight through the wiring harness. Alright guys, to make this more clear about what we're doing, as you can see right here we have our map sensor, and I'm just going to put the first one in that I already made because this one's already set, right? So basically, there we go. We want, because this one's going out to the sensor, right? So we have ourselves the bung here, or the one that comes with the AFC Neo, right? And so this is going to be what we intercept. We're intercepting that out signal. So what are we going to do? Again, that out signal from map, we know, is not on the side of the bolt or where the bolt goes. It's going to be on the other side, right? So you can see right in here where these go. So it's going to be kind of hard to do this, but it's a very kind of tricky fit, but it goes in there, and as you can see, it's going in, and look at that, it holds perfectly. And so basically we're just going to have 4 of those going across our map sensor. I already removed the little cover, it just kind of slides off. I already opened this, of course, but it's pretty much perfectly packaged, typical of Japanese quality in terms of their products and how they like things done. And this one is from Japan because it has all the Japanese documentation. I bet if I got the one from Apexi USA directly, it would of course be in probably English. You have your little double-sided foam mounting tape to kind of stick this onto your dashboard somewhere. Get these little rubberized, which I thought was some kind of heat shrink tubing when you do the bung splices, but it doesn't heat shrink. Probably has a specific use related to that, and I couldn't really see how it works practically, but I'm just going to put regular heat shrink on. But you can see these are the little connectors here, which you have the female ends like this, and the one coming out of the map sensor that I did already is like a male end, and basically just clip in together, hold securely, and then you have these little crimp sections there. You guys can see that. That's kind of how they work. Of course, here's your wiring harness. Now, there are some tricky parts about it because, you have to think about your total length, which I haven't unwrapped this yet, but you guys can see here that whatever's going to be coming out from the inside of the engine bay, so basically going into the car, you can see our length here is basically not very much. So there is some wiring coming off of the unit itself, though. You guys can see right here, this is the Apexi. Now, I thought it was actually much smaller. Even when I watch videos, I guess I just thought, like, see right here, this is the unit. And, it's almost like a small, feels like a Game Boy Advance, just not as tall. It's got like the same width, though, maybe. And they have it nice and wrapped here for you, so it's very secure. Again, it's that, that pride in their product that they have at the time. So, and there you go. It says made in Taiwan. There's the screen. Wow, that's not a very good pixel density there, but I'm not complaining because it's kind of cool. I kind of like the retro look that I saw that it had, and kind of gives it like a cool feeling. But we're gonna go ahead and like set this up in the car, and we're gonna see kind of like what the length we're working with is. Alright guys, it is day 2. I hope you can see me, I'm in the frame. Basically, I think that's good. So like that. Alright guys, it is day 2. It got really cold and I kind of started around like 3 yesterday, which was a mistake. Of course it's winter, so it started getting cold and dark fast, but we're redoing the design. This is the extended harness here with the ends and then the plugs. That goes to the plug from the main unit. I put some electrical insulation tape on there from that Tesa, the good one I recommended. I'm going to link in the description. I'm bundling up and I'm going to keep everything in here. Everything that I have to extend to the engine bay, because this cable harness is pretty tight, and then I realized I have to get wiring back through that line. So I'd basically be putting this big wire through here and then doubling back to get the stuff I need in here. So instead, I'm gonna wire in some wire here, of course with my method I use, just red for everything. I got some black wire just a while ago because I needed some more. So this is what I'm gonna be using for the, basically the stuff going into it is actually gonna be what's gonna be going from the engine bay back into the this wiring harness here. And you're gonna hear a car going around here a few times because they're gonna be practicing their driving. So it's not too noisy. It's a Tesla, you know, electrical car. So, you know, not too much noise going by, which is kind of nice, I guess. Like I said, electric car. But yeah, I just picked up my wire, so that's what the plan is right now. We got our diagram, so we're going to be wiring in the first one. I'm going to show you the method I'm going to use. These are the posy connectors, or the quick connectors. You know, everyone likes to do soldering. I just don't have the equipment for that, and these have always worked for me, so that's what I recommend. I used it for my stereo and everything else, and so that's what I'm going to use. So the plan right now is we're going to make our wire, we're going to measure out our length, so we're going to kind of estimate going under here and then through here, you know, so that's going to be like what? Like going in here, just give it a little bit extra slack, going up, you know. That's from that point, and then we're going to measure it upwards, going across into the engine bay at the point we need. And one going to the throttle body tap, the one for the map sensor intercept, which is 2, and then the 2 ECU grounds, which will be the shortest, going just up to the top there where the ECU is. So we're going to have a total of 5 wires going in. I'm going to bundle those up with the electrical wire tap, electrical insulation tape, and then we're going to have the rest go into the stereo for illumination, and the and then we're going to get probably our 12 volt ignition right here from the fuse taps. So we're going to go ahead and do that, guys. 18 gauge, so we're just going to go through like that, get around it, and we just kind of wiggle this off, and there's our exposed wire. Then we're going to do the same for the white line here, but the same length. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get that off there. There we go. And then basically all you want to do when you're using the connectors, it's really easy. You just get the 2 of the lines, kind of fan them out a bit. That way they kind of interconnect there. You kind of see that, just like that. And then you want to make sure they're pretty much even. And then you want to kind of twist them up like that. And you get one of your little posy connectors, which preferably you have it already untwisted here, because I just put it back up. And you put the kind of oblong end where it tapers from large to small right on top of that. Make sure it's covering the jacket. And you're going to hold the bottom, because as you squeeze down, this is going to want, there's basically a conical shape inside, so it's going to make sure the wires are basically really up against each other and that locks in. So see, it's going to want to push it down. So you're basically going to want to not make sure that doesn't happen, right? So once we get that line on there, again, you're going to want to squeeze that bottom part so that it doesn't force the wire out from the bottom. So you're kind of doing 2 things at once, which makes it a little bit tricky, but you know, it's definitely worth it when you get it good on there, because these lines are super, when you get them on there, they're tight. So there, and you can see right there, that's pretty much done. Only thing now to do is basically just put some, you know, electrical tape over the harness, and we'll be done. So we're going to do that for basically all the ones here. So again, our white, our yellow, we have 2 ECU grounds, so we're going to use black wire for that. So we basically have the black and brown for our 2 ECU grounds. Those are going to be a little bit shorter than 8 feet, maybe like less than that, 5, maybe 4, half that length. And the throttle might be 5 or 7. And the throttle signal is, again, a tap gray wire. We're going to zoom in on the 8-inch bay when we do the taps. And so that's pretty much it, guys. We'll get back to it after that. Alright guys, to go over what we're going to do first is we're going to actually, before you route anything through and wrap it up and make it look nice, we're just going to basically do the basic setup and make sure we can run the unit. So I'm going to plug everything in, just have the wires coming from the top of the fender, and I'm going to zoom in down here and show you guys how we're going to plug in the map sensor, crimp onto the metal bungs here using conventional crimper that comes with the metal bungs that come with the Apexi, and then also doing a wire tap, doing the T-tap for the throttle body connections. Alright guys, basically we just got most of the wiring done for down there, and I just confirmed with Apexi. I just called them, great customer service, and I just had a really simple question to answer right away. And basically, for the two signals here, or the two 12-volt power sources, you don't have to tap into the ECU as long as it's a key-on, basically, power source. So we're going to be using my favorite after I did my install for my AEM here. I'm going to be using tap-a-fuse, and basically I found two on there, which I'm going to point to so you guys can see up close which ones I'm using. It's a 20 amp ignition and ignition on, and a 15. One's for a cigarette lighter and one's for the ignition. And so we're going to basically tap those to spec, and then there's not really a fuse protection for this, so I just put a 15 amp on it, and I guess that'll be fine. If it becomes an issue, I'll just take it off, I guess, or put a higher load one, I mean. So basically, we need a orange wire here, which is illumination, so something that's going to be relating to, like, you know, turning on your, you know, this basically, the lights. And there's actually something like that for my stereo. It's an orange wire for illumination. And so you guys want to definitely have some body panels. If you have done a stereo change on this, you just want to refer to whatever your stereo guidelines are. You guys want to make sure you have your eye protection when you're removing the paneling, but basically it's pretty easy to get in here. You just have to remove the these here, which are your little vent guards, and they kind of just clip in. And I'm not going to go through all of them because it's the same on this side. You guys can see. Just kind of pull on it here, and basically will just come out. It's pretty tricky at first, but you know, you can see right there, and that's pretty much it. And then you're going to have access to two screws here, 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, and then you can take this whole fascia out, whatever your car is. This one I put in aftermarket. None of these controls did anything. I actually thought I could wire to my stereo. They thought it said it would work. It didn't, so it's just to make it look matched OEM, but basically these all do nothing on here, which sucks. Maybe I can at least get the power thing on there, I don't know. But yeah, that's a project for later. So I'm just going to basically remove this, and then I'm going to find my orange wire that I need for my harness on the stereo, and then we're going to tap that to the same orange wire on here, which is cool, I guess, because Pioneer's, you know, a Japanese company, and I guess maybe they do have some kind of standard for orange wiring being the illumination. So let's go ahead and do it, guys. I'll go ahead and zoom in and film it once I get it, and I'll show you the tapping process for this. Alrighty, so that's what it looks like with our dash unit out. You can see that the fascia and the two air vents have been removed, and then you basically just have the center console or the center stereo, and that's just going to come right out. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to find our wire, and then we're going to tap the orange wire. We're going to use a fuse to tap to get on the power on light signal. Alright guys, we're going to start doing this stuff in the engine bay now. I just pulled out the throttle cable, and if we look at our charts, right, so here is our clip, right? This is where we actually press on, and this is the part in this diagram right here, the throttle that it's referencing. So you can see we have the top clip here, and if we face that up to us, we see that number 6 here, or on the far left, being this wire right here, this pinout, corresponds to pink and black right here, which is what we see right here, as you can see. And that pink and black is our TPMS, or throttle position sensor signal 1, that we want to tap into. So we're going to go ahead and fuse tap that, and that again looks like another red one. And it's nice because this is already exposed, so we're just going to kind of tap it here at the end. That way it's not in the way of any of the tubing and all that for the, the radiator. And then we're going to get on with doing the map wiring and bringing our wires over here. And then the final step is going to be kind of cutting our sheathing over here that we have on the ECU and unplugging it. I had it kind of discharging because the battery's been unplugged. Of course you want to do that with wiring anyway. And then we're going to kind of unplug this and find our, which one's the ENG AB, which I don't think it's really listed here, but one of these has our really big 2 ground wires that we need to have access to. So those are the ones that we're going to cut. So let's go ahead and do that, guys. And I'm pretty sure you guys saw, but there we go. We already kind of tapped that into our throttle there. Have the fuse tap in, and then it's run in, and we're just kind of running it like this for now, so that way it's just quick and easy. And then of course we got these guys right here, which we're gonna again run to our map sensor, and we insulated each of the ends because again, We don't want them touching while they're going into the map sensor. The black ones are ground. That's going to go straight across. And then we're going to have one more which are going to crimp, right? Just going to go straight across. Then we have our intercept. And this is our wiring harness, right? And then we're going to have that go to one of ours and the other one going back in, right? So I'm going to have it go back into the other one, okay? Yeah, so we basically just want to make sure this is, before we put all this effort into it, wiring it, nicely and whatnot. So we're just going to make sure we can even get the unit working before we do any wire wrapping and getting that nice automotive tape on there that make sure it stays nice and protected. Alright guys, so when doing the little bungs here, it's a bit tricky because these have a specific way they want to be tapped. So it's a bit tricky. You have to do the flattening right here like this, and then like this, and then you can crimp right in like this. See that? And again, you want the non-insulated, and then you kind of do this. See? It'll fold it in on itself. It's kind of tricky focusing. See that little end there? And then you're going to have a good crimp on the wire. You're going to do this end the same way. You're just going to kind of wire it in there like that. Just like this. Kind of squeeze it together there. And then I'm going to do this one again, just like that. Kind of crimp it in. See that? It's going to go against the wire. And then it's going to fold. Then you can go on this one again, the round side. Like that. See that? And go like this side, like that. All we have to do is get our heat shrink tubing now, and that's crimped properly, and then we'll be good to go. And we're going to do the other one. Alright, and there we go. Got that nice and heat shrink there. Sorry, because it's trying to do face focusing, but yeah. There you go. And so now we have our crimp here to go into the out there of the sensor. I'm just going to plug that one right in. Now we just need to get one more, which is our intercept signal, right? Okay, just like that. Okay. Just like that. Crimper here on insulated, because that's what we have right here. Crimp that down good. I'm going to get my little piece of tape here and tape around there and secure it. Then we're going to work on the ECU ground right over here. Make sure you guys plug in the VMS actuator back in on that side, because we're done over here with the throttle and the map sensor. Now to get the ECU unplugged, you just kind of do this here. You can kind of see it. And these are like these kind of security locks, right? And then they just kind of pop out after that, or the AB signal, right? And there it is. There's big wires right here on the side. I see them. We basically have two grounds. And so what you want to do is go ahead and carefully, we're going to remove this zip tie here, because this zip tie will allow us to kind of take off this little shrouding piece here. Careful, because there's a bunch of sharp stuff around there, guys. Rough edges. And we're going to try to get our two taps in there. And I talked to Apexi. They said, an inch, 3 centimeters. Basically, they want it spaced out because they're kind of two power sources. That's why we have two different taps on the fuses for a 12 volt, two different grounds. That way it's kind of redundancy and some other function, which I don't completely understand when he explained it. He explained it simply, but I was just like, I got the part with the redundancy. But yeah, it has to do like with shorting and whatnot, I think. Again, the redundancy. So let's go ahead and get that cut there. It is a bit tricky to get to, it looks like, so here it is. Power ground 1 and 2. And if we go back to 1 and 2, you guys can see, again, because our pins are on the left, so we're going to rotate around, see pins 1 and 2, because our pins are on this side, are going to be the top two ones. Okay. So, and they're both black, I believe. What they want to do, it's actually pretty hard. You do need to remove the zip tie. You're going to remove your electrical tape here and put some new tape on. And that'll give you access to kind of mess around with this rubberized stuff, which has adhesive on it too, which, this whole thing is pretty locked up, which, it should be, because it's for the ECU. So So it looks like this one right here, I was able to pull down, and I isolated these two on the top here as our two primary grounds. And before again we worry about trying to straighten stuff up and make it look nice. Yeah, there's ground. There's two, and there's one right there. So we're gonna use the one that's closest to the edge, which is actually ground number 2. So go ahead and spread this a bit more. The I don't want the unit to get touched on there. The little. All right, guys. So just to show you real quick, we got our 2 grounds tapped here, and you can see them right here, sort of spaced out. Here we go. And I use the, even though this wire looks pretty thick, decided to go with the yellow, which is the larger size. If we're not getting a good ground, then we'll probably switch to the red, but I think this will do just fine. These just get plugged in right here, and we're just going to leave it all out until we figure it out. I swap to the red, usually use yellow, but our wire here is not that size, so plug those in just like that, and get our ECU kind of back in here, tucked in. And kind of just work with it for now. Be gentle with those, because you have those taps there now. Make sure this thing is up. Okay, and then there, that's locked in. So that's all good, and guys, we're pretty much good. So we can just first we're going to put in the battery here, so we can see, get all our papers out of here because we don't want anything falling around and all that. So just leave our stuff up here, and everything's clear from the fans over here. I checked. So we're good on that part. So we don't want a wire getting caught in there after all our work. That'd be terrible. But yeah. All right, guys. So you guys saw, looks kind of like a mess right now, but we're gonna go ahead and plug in our fuse taps. So we're gonna have this one here first, and remember, had our correction there for the orientation. We have our 20 amp first, which is going to be that one right here. So let's go ahead and get that in there. We can use is that one right there. That's far side, far right, 2 down, below the 7.5, before the 10. That 15 is a key on. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one out and then put the other 15 back in where it belongs. Guys, so I just got that plugged in there. And you can see the 2 of them there. If it'll focus, the one on the right and the top there, the 20 in the middle, 15 on the right, and then that one on the very far left was the AEM. So here's our unit, which I just kind of tethered here for now because I just want to be able to look at it quickly for now while we're doing our wiring. And we should be able to get a key on here. So we have everything set up. So let's go ahead and do that. And look at that. It powers right up. So perfect. A few days after I did my second day on the install video, getting everything figured out, basically the hiccup that we hit was that we actually need to get an RPM signal to the Apexi unit. And I tried tapping different wires on the tachometer, and by pulling this out and probing the wires, that didn't work. And I read on a forum online, most of the modern tachometers get their RPM through the Canbus, so you can't just like get a good reading off of that. So basically, yeah, and plus many of the wires are dual phase, or I forget what it was called, but basically they send different, their different information is retrieved through the same wire, so it would never work. I tried using the camshaft position sensors one, but it was really slow at updating using the wire tap, and that didn't work. I tried the crankshaft position sensor signal, and that basically completely cut out my RPM signal from like going to my dash, so I don't want to use that. And so I found this really cool thing online. It's made in the UK, and it's exactly what I searched when I found it. I'll link in the description for anyone who wants to do this install for this Elantra here, for our Elantra, the 5th gen, or any other car where they come up to a similar situation where you can't get a clean tack signal, because most modern cars it's done through the CAN bus and whatnot. So if you're doing, whether it's a secondary tack or aftermarket tack, tachometer, or maybe a second RPM gauge, whatever, you probably want to use one of these. It is the OBD2 Canbus to signal wire converter. So basically it has a little small microprocessor in there that's basically going to take those Canbus and have different output wires, and basically you can get RPM, road speed, so basically your miles per hour, whether the engine is running or not and whether the car is traveling or not. And basically, it says right here, suitable for non-Canbus instrumentation. So this is not if you're trying to go from basically extend the OBD2 as a breakout, basically, as a breakout wires to a Canbus tachometer. This is if you have a non-Canbus system, basically, or Apexi, and you want to go from Canbus to standard, or what you would call like an analog. And it says right here on the instructions, it goes to a 12-volt sine output at 2 cranks per revolution, or per 2 cranks of revolution of the crank, right? Which is what we're going to use. And so we're going to go ahead and finish up with our wiring today, guys. And we're just going to hook this up real quick and test it and make sure it gives us exactly what we need, because it does have a startup. You have to start the engine and make sure you get, it'll do a red light. It's going to load the protocol, get your engine's protocol or your Canbus protocol, and then it's going to show a green light, meaning it has it. And then we're going to hook this up to RPM after it does the green light, because it needs to set up first. And then we're going to check our Apexi, make sure it has RPM. If it has RPM, we're pretty much good to go, guys. So let's go ahead and get started. If that checks out, we're going to go to the heat shrink, wrap everything through, clean it up, and basically get it actually running. So let's get to it, guys. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and plug in the unit, make sure we are getting a good protocol here. And you can see that it's really compact. They didn't give you a really long harness because they wanted to give you basically what you need, but we want this blue wire right here. And so we're going to go ahead and get our RPM, the green. We don't need this extra long wire on here either, because yeah, first get this started up and see if we get our protocol. So it says it wants you to plug it in, right? And we have the red right here, the red dot, so we need to start the engine so it gets protocol. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to load. It's going to get protocol, and it has protocol ready. It's our green light, which basically means it's set up. So it already found our protocol, which is, you know, pretty standard. It's a newer car, 2014. And we should be able to tap this for our RPM signal. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the things to the top of the engine bay here, our grounds, our voltage, and then we should be able to get an RPM signal on the Apexi, and we'll double check that. Because this is already set up, actually the light is perfectly green still, we're going to go ahead and wire up our signal here, and we're going to start up the Apexi with it. Actually, I'm going to get a little bit more off of this wire here, that way they're equal lengths. We should be able to get a clean RPM signal off of this now. So I'm going to go ahead and start up the car. Actually, I'm going to do the initialization first real quick, make sure there's no problems. That should stay connected. It's going to be hard to see. Actually, I think that the initialization stays. Actually, let's go ahead and do, yeah, VTech is off, still on easy. Let's go ahead and put our cylinders back up to 4, so we should get a good reading this time. Go back to our monitor, and let's go ahead and start the car. And there we go, guys. We are getting RPM there. It is adjusting a bit slow because I think the Canbus is working with the gauge there, so I'm probably going to have to unplug my gauge. As you can see how it updates really slowly there. So this is trying to read the RPM too, and it's first on the line, so I think it's considered a priority. So let me go ahead and turn this off real quick, and we're actually going to unplug the little gauge here. If I can actually get to it. Oh wait, I'll just do it from here and we'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to unplug the gauge here. And that device shouldn't be getting any more protocol from it because it's not plugged in anymore. And there you guys can see. It's updating perfectly, up to speed, no delays. basically going up perfectly with it. You don't want to have two Canbus systems feeding from the same thing, otherwise you're going to get delays. So 777 guys, and everything is working out good, guys. And so yeah, let's go ahead and finish through it. We're going to do the heat shrink, and then everything else will be good. Alright guys, to basically review where we are right now, we've already brought our harness through here, and we're going to be focusing on, actually, we already brought our harness through the car. You can see right here, all taped up nice. Took a while. We have both bands. Basically, I put 3 together in one using, the nice Tesa tape. And basically, this is for the throttle and the in and out for the map. And then I put the 2 in their own. And you can see those are kind of tucked in right there. You know, not too stealth, but it's all sealed up nice so it won't come loose. And it looks decent. That wider one there is, again, the one coming back around through here, past the battery, and coming through here with the red exposed. Again, you want to have a little bit like extra. You don't want to have less than you need. So I had an extra long throttle here, so I cut it and then re-tapped it again, plugged that in. I'm going to redoing the tape on it as well, so you can see that it's going to basically fit in. You can see right there, it is already plugged in. And what you guys actually want to do, you guys want to make sure that you have your voltage, your ground set up, your power, your tachometer, and your throttle plugged in, because it's going to get a voltage from the throttle position sensor, and you won't be able to do that in the car with ignition power. And when it's in neutral, you won't get when you get full throttle, it won't open the throttle all the way in neutral or park. So you actually need to drive the car with the Apexi on, and when you do the voltage measurement, which is right after the cylinder setup, so we did 4 cylinders again, you get a 4-cylinder car, then you do the throttle, and then you go all the way up, and I think it should be around 4.6, 4.7 volts for you guys on the Elantra. Some cars might be 5. That's what we have in our car. So we can see right here our last part. As you can see right here, our last part that we're dealing with right now is the map sensor again. So we're going to be intercepting the signal from that, and you can see right here we have the 2 connectors. Now this is extra long, you don't need that much slack, so I'm actually going to cut this short and then, you know, re-shrink and crimp on some connectors again, so you guys don't have to worry about seeing that. But like I said, I'm just going to cut these short. Then I'm going to wrap it with tape. I'm going to wrap the throttle with tape too, so the red isn't showing. I'm going to put these 2 together, then split them, then leave the red exposed probably, or I might just do black and then split it, then do the throttle. But once we get that intercepted, and again using those other little things I showed you guys where it sticks inside the sensor there, and then this is for the 3 other signal prongs that we aren't using, because we're only intercepting one, which is the map. We don't want to intercept the ground, power, or temperature sensor. And I just kind of, you know, spruce these up a bit, put heat shrink for this part so that the contacts don't maybe touch in there, and of course this part, which is the male part, which heat shrink up to that, and so it just goes right into the connector. So let's go ahead and do it, guys. I'll show you what it looks like right after. Alright, so as you guys can see, I put up some electrical tape here, and that's to kind of seal off the area. And then I'm going to go over the whole thing, this part right here, with my Tesa tape, and then Tesa tape here. And then I'm going to plug into the sensor prongs, and then, well, this one here is going to get the electrical tape around the sensor, and then this is going to be its own thing, the intercept. And then again, that's going to get Tesa tape to give that insulation and protection. The electrical tape's rubberized, so it's going to give it kind of a bit more tautness here and a little bit more waterproofing or water protection. So after that's all set up, we'll be done, guys. Alright guys, as you can see, we got the unit wired up here. Kind of looks a bit awkward there coming from the sensor harness to this, and everything works good. Got our air to fuel, and I'm going to tape it up a bit more, but I just want to go ahead and start it before we lose daylight. It's winter, guys, so let's go ahead and start the car and see what we got here on the menu. Alright, let's get our keys out. Start her up. I did, like I said, configure the colors, because there's with accessory what it looks like. You'll kind of get a little light up thing feature there. And you guys can see I changed my color to be orange on the menu. It will be like their blue color. I did the orange and blue, especially that 90s era orange is, you know, so like what, JDM, right? I really like their menu. It just feels, you know, very JDM. It is JDM, Apex integration, or I just call it Apexi, but works good. So we can go start the car, guys. You see it starts up good. There are no throttle points adjusted, so this is essentially what the stock, mostly stock setting is going to be. And you could see the in and out is exactly the same for, you can see right there. In one, if it'll focus here, for our map sensor, in and out are the same. You can see throttle working, sign for tachometer. We don't have a Karman, no VTEC. That's where the lamp's on and off, and we got our ignition for power. So it's pretty much completely set up. Everything's good. I already flopped my unit around because I'm going to leave it like this for now while it's sitting on top of my unit, but then eventually I'm going to put it like somewhere over here like this, or maybe I'll leave it like that, I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to tuck up the wires here. I'm not going to show that because, yeah, but again, we had our main ones run through there, and there's that little unit. I got the Cartek OBD2 to standard sign tachometer. But you guys can see here, here's our map. This is where we'll actually do our adjustments here for high throttle, low throttle. I set mine for 10% on low, and 70% is going to be our high throttle setting, basically 70% the voltage. You can see the graph here when you actually get it set up. You're going to see your throttle point. You can see that's where I set it up. The detected air here. If you have to do some corrections, you would do some base corrections here from that. And yeah, that's kind of like the whole settings menu here. And then of course you have the monitor, so you can do analog, channel 2, and get that little set up. So that'll be kind of cool to have right now. You can do one channel, which is just your RPM. You can do this one here, which is your throttle, revolutions per minute, RPM, throttle, battery, which is pretty cool. You can do 4 channel here and get your, so you can see 0% correction there, which is what we want. I kind of like the multi, so because my battery's really funky right now, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead this over the part 2 video, and we'll go over all that stuff. Maybe the cells and the battery don't good because they're aftermarket. But that concludes our Apexi install. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off in the front, guys, so you guys can see me. I'm gonna say goodbye. This almost took 5 days getting all the wiring and fitting it through here, and finding time for it and everything. But we're gonna close off the video, guys. All right, guys, that concludes part 1 of the installation for the Apexi Universal AFC Neo fuel controller. It was a long process getting everything figured out. You guys know that I always try to do things non-invasively, so we didn't splice into our original harness. Everything was done in a manner that's very simple. It can be completely reversed. It's inside now. You guys saw it working. And I'm going to have a part 2 video of the tuning, guys, so stay tuned for that. As always, got some beautiful dubs there. And as always, guys, God bless you, and always enjoy the drive. Bye.